So the final phase before we end our turn is the fight phase, which is my favourite phase. In my Warhammer 40,000 beginners series, I'll teach you the very basics of how to play 40k. So fight phase, my favourite part of the game. Okay, I love close combat. It's what my army does. So I'm always excited when I get into combat, unless it's against custodies, and then I just get absolutely destroyed, and I think, why did I charge? But anyway, that's off the point. So coming back to our situation that hopefully you watched in the charge phase video. So you've done the deployment phase, you've gone through the command phase, you have went through the shooting phase, charge phase, and now we're at this point where there is combat. So what you do is you activate the player whose turn it is. So what you do is units are divided into two groups. You have fights first, and then the everybody else. Okay, so some units have the ability to fight first. Okay, other units will gain the ability to fight first if they make a charge move. Okay, so in this situation, my Chaos Space Marine Legionnaires have the fights first because they have charged into the assault marines. Okay, the jump intercessors are not fighting first because they did not charge. They do not have the ability to fight first. Okay, so we're going to run through this, and then we will go back a step and come back to this, and then go through some of the finer details. So I've charged in. I am base to base. These are base to base. These are base to base. These are base to base. This one is a little gap, so he's not base to base, and he is not in combat. So currently, as this stands, 4 can fight, and this guy cannot fight. But when you activate your unit, so you have to go through one by one activating units to fight. So I'm going to activate these Legionnaires. They've got fights first, so they will go first. They're in the first group of units to fight. So the fights first units will fight now. These I'm going to activate, and what you do on activation is they get a pile in move. This means anybody who is not in base to base contact can pile in a further 3 inches. Okay, they have to end up in base to base if they can. They have to end up closer to the enemy unit than they were previously, otherwise they do not move. They do not have to make a piling move, but yeah, they can make a piling move. So for example, this guy could move around here, and this guy could move round to here. So that now means all 5 are in base to base. But for example, let's just say they're up here. Okay, they cannot make base to base, even with a 3 in piling. They cannot make base to base. But what they can do is they can fight through their opponent's base. So anyone that is touching base to base, they can fight through. Okay, so they can fight through like that. They could also, there will also be, if you're in 1 inch engagement range, so say you can make it to here within 1 inch, okay, but not touch base to base, or not basing with your own man to fight through. If you're just within 1 inch like that, you can fight. Okay, as long as you're within 1 inch, you can fight. If you're base to base with an enemy model, you can fight. And if you are in base contact with one of your models who is in base contact with an enemy model, your model can fight through that base. Okay, so then we get to the fights phase. Okay, so again, just like the shooting phase, you're going to roll your dice. You're going to see how many attacks your melee weapons have got. So in this case, I know that a chainsword, for example, has 4 attacks. Okay, so I'm just going to roll one dude. You'd roll them all together, but just to show you the example, I'm just going to roll 4 dice, okay? So one of my guys, so all of them would attack at the same time, but I'm just going to use one guy. So let's just say this guy, okay, is 1 inch engagement range for him, is going to fight. So he needs to get a his weapon skill. So it's weapon skill, not ballistic skill. This time it's on the profile, same sort of place. If you watch the shooting video, if you haven't, I recommend you go back and watch that because it goes through this in more detail. So you roll your dice, and I'll be hitting on 3. So this one will miss, get 3 successful hits. The strength of that chainsword is 4. The toughness of the intercessors is 4. So again, going back to the shooting video where it goes through making attacks, okay, I'll need a 4 because it's equal. So that was a bad roll, and none of them wound. So let's just say one of them is a wound, okay? So that means now my opponent gets to make 1 save. So the AP on the chainswords is 1. Space Marine, the Blood Angels have a save of 3. So you modify that, and it goes up to a 4+. So the Blood Angel needs a 4+ to survive, avoid taking damage, which he does. So Space Marine would not have taken damage. Let's just pretend he rolls a 2, which means he fails his save, and that means he would have 1 damage allocated to him, because chainsaws do 1 damage, okay? One thing that I did not mention in the making attacks video in the shooting is damage cannot roll over onto other models. So if you have a damage 5 weapon, okay, let's just say a Marine who's got 1 wound here, okay, Power Fist guy here, his weapon does 2 damage. If he gets 1 through and the Marine fails his save, even though he's done 2 damage, he doesn't take a wound off here and a wound there. He can just kill that model because his 2 damage does not roll over. Okay, there is one exception to that, and that is mortal wounds, but that is probably a different video, along with all the other different abilities and keywords that you can get on weapons, for example, like sustained and lethals, etc., etc. Okay. So yeah, we'll ignore that for now, but linking to that, a unmodified roll of 6 is always a critical hit or a critical wound, so it means it will always succeed, okay? And similarly, a 1 will always fail, okay? So no matter what the roll is, if you roll a 1, you fail. If you roll a 6, you pass, okay? The only exceptions for that is, for example, so that's when we're doing damage, okay? Damage and saving throws, etc., etc. Not for like leadership tests, not for charges, not for advances, things like that. So anything where you're attacking an enemy, a 6 is a critical hit or a wound, and a 1 is a failure. So you can never like auto pass without anything, a special ability or a special rule or a stratagem or something, okay? So that brings us on to individual fights. But imagine, so I'm going to move this out a little bit so we've got a bit more space. So imagine, right, we've got multiple combats going on. So we've got the Forge Fiend is involved with these guys over here. So let's just say Chaos Space Marines, Legionnaires charged in, Forge Fiend charged in, okay? Blood Angels did not charge, they do not have the Fights First ability, okay? So this means that these have Fights First because they're charged, and this has Fights First. So that means the Legionnaires and the Forge Fiend are in the Fights First group. The Blood Angels are both in the other group, okay? So they do not get to fight first. That means the player whose turn is not, gets to choose a unit to activate first. So from the Fights First group. So the Blood Angels player has nobody in the Fights First group, so it cannot activate a unit. So the Chaos Space Marine will activate whoever, so it's activating these first, and then it will activate Forge Fiend because these are the only ones in the Fights First group, okay? Then it will go on to the other, which will mean Space Marines get to activate, Space Marines get to activate. Okay, so this is where it starts to get more confusing. So imagine that these haven't charged. Okay, it's Chaos Space Marine player's turn, but this is an ongoing combat. Okay, nobody's charged, so nobody has the fights first ability. Okay, so it's unusual that that situation happens, but it can happen. Okay, so nobody's got fights first because nobody's charged. No one has the ability. So what this means is whoever's turn it is not activates their unit first. So if it's a Chaos Space Marine player's turn, so it's Chaos Space Marine player. So whoever's turn it is not gets to activate first. So Blood Angel player activates these first, then the Chaos Space Marine player gets to activate a unit. So they are going to activate the Legionnaires. Then it goes back to Blood Angel, who activates these, then to Chaos Space Marine these. Okay, it goes backwards and forwards, just like in the deployment phase. Okay, if no one has that a fights first unit. Okay. So, and then another situation that can occur is, let's just say that the Legionnaires have charged into the Calidus Assassin and the Blood Angels, okay, and the Assault Intercessors, jump back dudes, okay. These guys have got fights first because they charged, okay. Forge Fiend, let's just say that charged as well. That's got fights first because it charged, but the Calidus Assassin has fights first inbuilt. It has an ability to fights first. Because it is the Chaos Space Marine player's turn, the person whose turn it is not gets to choose a unit to activate first. So now in the fights first group, we have the Calidus, the Legionnaires, and the Forge Fiend. Blood Angels player gets to choose to activate first, so they will choose the Calidus. Then it will go to Chaos Space Marines, who can activate either the Forge Fiends or the Legionnaires. Just because the Calidus is fighting first in this group, it does not mean the jump intercessors can activate. It just means this unit can activate because you activate unit by unit. So fights first ability, fights first from charging, okay, and then it'll go back and forwards just like if there's no one who fights first. That is very confusing. It's probably one of the most confusing things to get your head around in 40k, so I do expect there'll probably be questions on that. And on the final note, if you have got a three-way combat, so let's just say, let's remove the Calidus because it makes it more confusing. Remove that, and we'll pop these in. So if there is a three-way combat like this going on, okay, then let's just say no one's charged again. So let's say it is the let's just say it's the Blood Angels player's turn. So the first unit to activate is going to be the Legionnaires. Okay, Legionnaires activate. They need to, so they're going to do their pile in. So he piles in wherever he wants. Okay, just the same as before. He has to now choose where to allocate his attacks because it's not just one unit. Before it was just easy, you just allocate all your attacks into there, all your damage goes into there. You need to now choose where to allocate. You can put all your people into there, all of them into there, whatever you can do, okay? The only caveat to that is where your models are base to base, okay? So these are in engagement range, so these are all in engagement range to them. They can all fight with these, okay? Let's just assume that they are base to base with that. He's in engagement range, but he is base to base with him, who's base to base with him. So you could put 4 into there, or you could put 5 into there, or you could put 1 into there. You can split them however you want. The only one who hasn't got a choice is this guy here, because he is not base to base with one of these. He's not base to base with one of these, and he's not within 1 inch engagement range of these. So he does not have a choice. The rest of them have a choice, okay, of who to fight. Let's just say he was there as well. So he's not base to base, so he would have to fight them. He would have to fight them. These 3 would get a choice who to attack, okay? You have to declare where all your attacks are going, just like shooting, before you start to roll. And you can't roll them individually and say, oh, I'll just keep hitting this unit till it's dead and then I'll put the rest into there. You have to declare them at the same time, okay? Right, so, and finally, final part, okay? let's remove these so that they do not confuse anything. So we've done our fight. So let's just say we kill two jump intercessors, okay? And then what we can do is, after we have fought, we make a consolidate move, okay? Consolidation move, or consolidate. We consolidate, okay? So anyone who's not in base to base, so these three are in base to base, they cannot move. These two who are not can move 3 inches. They have to end up closer to an enemy, the enemy unit, okay? So for example, they could just move like this. That if they can get into engagement range of base space, they have to, okay? So he's going to go to here, and he would have to move to there. So you don't have to move the full amount. You could just move along. You could stay where you are. You don't have to move at all, okay? So 3 inches, consolidate move. So if you can consolidate into an enemy, you have to consolidate into the enemy or not at all, okay? It's model by model, so it's not a unit by unit basis, okay? It gets a little bit confusing. 40k Dirtbags have just done a really in-depth video on this, so if you want to learn more about that in much greater detail than this video, head over to 40k Dirtbags, and there's a video on there which goes into lots of detail, okay? So the other option is, let's imagine you destroyed the entire unit. Okay, there's no unit now for you to pile in because there's no enemy within 3 inches. So, sorry, not pile in, consolidate. There's no enemy within 3 inches, so you cannot consolidate into an enemy. So what you can do is consolidate towards an objective marker, okay? As long as you end up within range of that objective marker, you can consolidate, okay? And you have to end up closer to the objective marker than you were before. So if you can end up within range, you can move, and again, it's model by model. As long as the unit can end up there, all the models can move, okay? So it gets a bit confusing if there's two, because one guy could move towards this one guy could move towards that one, as long as he ends up on it, okay? And then the final thing is, imagine we were fighting these guys. So, oops, chainsaw stuck. So imagine we were fighting these guys, and imagine this guy is here, okay? That's our situation. These have charged in, they fight first, they pile in, okay? They kill these two guys, and then that means now they can consolidate. They do not consolidate on the objective because he's in range. So if they're going to consolidate, they have to consolidate towards him, and they have to end up in base to base if they can. These two don't have to consolidate, okay, or they can consolidate like this, so they could stay on that objective. But yeah, so you can't, they could either consolidate into him or just stay where they were. They can't not move, okay? And the final thing, okay, final thing that I forgot to mention in all of these beginner videos, I should have done it in the movement phase, I'm going to put a little comment on to movement phase video, is you have to stay within unit coherency, okay? So if you have 7 or more models in your unit, you have to stay within 2 inches of 2 other models in that unit, okay? If it's a unit of 6 or below, 7 or below, sorry. If it's 8 or above, then it's 2 models. If it's 7 and below, it is only within 2 inches of one model. So you could have them strung right out, okay? So you could have them like this, as long as they're within 2 inches of one model. I mean, that's pushing it. That's like just on the edge there, but within 2 inches of one model, and that's fine, okay? And if they're not, so imagine that this guy dies at the end of each phase, okay? If they're not within 2 inches, you have to destroy models until coherency is achieved, okay? So if he's there out of coherency, okay, you could destroy them if you wanted to, but obviously it would make more sense to destroy him. So if you wanted to hold that objective, you could destroy those 3 and then you're holding that objective, but it'd make more sense probably to just destroy him and then you keep your unit intact. Okay, so I know I've tagged that on the end there, but coherency is very important. So that is the end of the fight phase. And after the fight phase, you go on to the end of the turn. That is when you tot up any points for your secondary objectives and certain other things, depending on your army, your abilities, any stratagems. But generally, it's just take score, and then the opposition will start their command phase. So again, if I've missed anything off there, if you have any comments, any questions, feel free to ask. Fight phase is probably the most complicated of all the phases in 40k. It's where people make the most mistakes. So yeah, I'm expecting some questions and some comments. So hopefully that's useful. Hopefully that helps, and hopefully this little series has helped you have a little introduction into 40k.